I'm Ute Stephan. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship at Estrin Business School, where I'm also the director of the Estrin Center for Research into International Business and Entrepreneurship. And the research we're going to talk about today is on social and commercial entrepreneurship, and I got interested in social entrepreneurship because it's a phenomenon that's bubbling up everywhere in the economy. So you see it in different sectors, from banking, construction, education, health, community regeneration, you name it. But we have very little research on it, and it's an intriguing phenomenon because it promises to alleviate societal problems as well as generate viable, sustainable businesses. I'd like to talk about a paper on human capital and social and commercial entrepreneurship that we recently published in the Journal of Business Venturing, and this is joint work with Saul Estrin from the London School of Economics and Tomasz Mickiewicz from Estrin Business School. So the paper was specifically motivated by the fact that A, we know very little about social entrepreneurship and especially how it compares to commercial entrepreneurship, and B, if you're a policymaker and you want to support social entrepreneurship, one of the things you want to know is whether actually the support to social entrepreneurs may come at the detriment to the support for commercial entrepreneurs. So one important question is, do social and commercial entrepreneurs draw from the same pool of entrepreneurial talent, or are there maybe different people involved? So our research approach was to adopt the human capital lens to understand who becomes attracted to social versus commercial entrepreneurship. And if you look at the human capital literature, there are really two strands. So there's the specific entrepreneurial capital, or specific human capital, and that's entrepreneurial skills, entrepreneurial experience. And we thought, okay, both of these types of entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs, so they would both benefit from entrepreneurial experience. What's maybe more interesting is the general human capital. So general human capital is typically measured through education, and in our case we looked at higher education, and we thought social entrepreneurship has, on top of creating a viable business, they also need to deal with the social goals, which means they need to engage with more stakeholders, they need to juggle the social and economic goals, they also need to embed themselves in the community. So there is just a lot more things going on, if you want. It's a bit more complex. So we thought, actually they may benefit from general human capital, from the broader capabilities and abilities that you gain from general human capital. And then we also that's the economic argument, and drawing on the more psychological literature, you could also say, well, general human capital education has socializing effects, so there may be also a motivational effect why general human capital benefits social entrepreneurship. What we did was we used the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor data from 2009, and we looked at 70,000 people that were currently in the startup process, and we looked whether they were starting a social business or a commercial business. And the GEM data have the advantage that they're available across 37 countries, so we were also able to look at whether the relationships between human capital and the choice for social versus commercial entrepreneurship are context specific, so specific to certain institutional contexts, or they generalize across contexts. And the nature of the data is such that we did multilevel modeling, and what we found is quite interesting. So we found very consistent positive effects of general human capital, so higher education basically gives people an advantage to become social entrepreneurs, versus for specific human capital entrepreneurial experience that's consistently positively related to commercial entrepreneurship. And then what we see is that this latter relationship is also context dependent. So if you're in a setting with good institutional qualities, which tends to be more developed economies, then you benefit more from investing into entrepreneurial experience and have a greater payoff for that. And so further results were also interesting because they suggested that it's not just the more highly educated that get attracted to social entrepreneurship as compared to commercial, but it's also women who have a higher likelihood to engage in social entrepreneurship, and also those not currently in the labor market. So what we see from all these findings together, including also our earlier research with Saul Estrin and Tomasz Mickiewicz, we see that basically there is a crowding in phenomena. So it's not the fact that social and commercial entrepreneurship compete for the same pool of entrepreneurial talent. That's actually only the case to a very limited extent. But what's really interesting is that social entrepreneurship appears to bring new people into the entrepreneurial process. So women, the highly educated, And once you're a social entrepreneur, you seem to accrue skills that you then also put to use in terms of starting a commercial business. So social entrepreneurship really seems to be also a way in for people who are not normally interested in being an entrepreneur into becoming an entrepreneur. And so that's obviously quite interesting for policymakers. They have essentially at least two reasons to support social entrepreneurs. On the one hand, because of the promise that these social enterprises are self-sustainable and address societal challenges. And on the other hand, they also provide a means of indirectly supporting commercial entrepreneurship and bringing more people into entrepreneurship. And then for us as educators, there's clearly also an implication there, because if it's the more highly educated who have especially a propensity to engage in social entrepreneurship and have through their education the human capital and skills and motivation to do so, then we should also put explicit effort into giving people entrepreneurial skills with a clear goal of them not just engaging in commercial entrepreneurship but also in social entrepreneurship. And we often do this, I think, for business students, but I think here the message is also to look more broadly at kind of disciplines that maybe are not immediately come to mind, like the social sciences or humanities. Well, I would encourage, I think that the problem is that many people still don't know about social entrepreneurship. So I think I would encourage probably us as educators to talk about entrepreneurship more broadly and explicitly bring social entrepreneurship into the discussion. Because even in my own class, I see that people from a social science background or humanities background, if they hear entrepreneurship, they often think, oh no, that's not for me, that's not what I identify with, especially women and often also minorities, because that's not the role models they see in everyday life. But if you talk about social entrepreneurship and social projects, then that's much more attractive and they can more easily